They told you these remedies were safe. They told you they would cure you. We must examine the information they are presenting.
Every headline shifts, change the name, repeat. Clarity in the chaos, cut it to the core, Everything they bury, rising to the surface. Design again, different words, same line, blur it till it fades, hide it in plain sight. Clarity in the chaos, cut it to the core, distill it down. Says it all in the chaos.
Welcome to Deception Distilled. It is Friday, May the 22nd. Good evening, Patrick. How are you?
Outstanding. How are you?
Great. Do you have any, Memorial Day plans this weekend?
I think we're going to go to the pool in the neighborhood and try to catch a little bit of sun. Ooh. And maybe cook some stew or something, some summer stew. I don't know. It'll be a family weekend. My mom will probably come over and we'll play with the baby, and she'll be amazing. She has two razor sharp teeth that have finally surfaced on her lower gums.
Oh, that is adorable. That is just adorable. It's raining. It's going to rain here the whole weekend, so I think I'm just going to snuggle in for the weekend. Oh, yeah. So if you guys are watching on Rumble, if you would, please just hit that thumbs up. And, think about, if you would, one person in your life that might fit from just getting caught up on stuff, right? 1 hour, once a week, share the show with just one person, because you just never know how sharing one time could make a huge difference in somebody else's life. If you're watching on X, please hit that little heart, repost the show. Patrick and I are incredibly grateful for all your support. You ready to jump into this, Patrick?
I believe that I am.
All righty. Well, we have some breaking news this evening before we get into our topic. So I'm going to share this screen and let you take over here. We have, let me find it. There we go. Go ahead, Patrick.
Healthy Gabbard on Twitter. I am deeply grateful for the trust President Trump placed in me and for the opportunity to lead the ODNI for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th, 2026. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the coming weeks and months. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through this battle.
And she obviously attaches her resignation letter, again, effective June 30th. So
I remember when Rush Limbaugh was diagnosed and he announced, and she was the most gracious public figure about it.
Well, what's kind of interesting about this, because I'm going to share this one, because, well, I'll put this up first. The thing that caught my attention first was that cancer is highlighted in this story. This is from just a little bit ago, Patrick.
Donald Trump on Truth Social. Unfortunately, after having done a great job, Tulsi Gabbard will be leaving the administration on June 30th. Her wonderful husband, Abraham, has been recently diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer, and she rightfully wants to be with him, bringing him back to good health as they currently fight a tough battle together. I have no doubt he will soon be better than ever. Tulsi has done an incredible job, and we will miss her. Her highly respected Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Aaron Lucas, will serve as Acting Director of National Intelligence, President Donald J. Trump.
So Aaron Lucas named as Acting Director of the National Intelligence. Well, then we had General Flynn, and this was at 3 o'clock this morning, Patrick.
General Michael Flynn on Twitter, quote, "Splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds," end quote. How many errors can the nation afford before there is radical reform and reorganization of the Central Intelligence Agency? Which president will have the guts to do what JFK wanted to do but never had the chance? It was once said the CIA could not afford another debacle because it would shake the faith the public had in this institution, if it ever had any faith at all. The CIA has made profound errors that have shaken U.S. policy to its core, and it makes the United States government look foolish domestically and is embarrassing ourselves overseas. The time for change is now. Enough is enough. Tagging J.D. Vance and Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
The time for change is now, he said. He tags this Catherine Herridge article, and again, he posted this at 3:13 this morning, right before the same day that DNI Gabbard puts in her resignation. So it's interesting to me that Flynn flagged the article by Catherine Herridge because she, in that article, was reporting that the CIA had been monitoring the Directives Initiatives Group, that's the DNI's group, tracking keystrokes on government computers and devices. And it was just last week that CIA whistleblower James Erdman was testifying at Rand Paul's hearing, alleging that the CIA was illegally spying on their investigations. So what kind of brings this to mind is, do we have a next batter up? And could it be possibly General Flynn? Because
you say batter, what do you mean by batter?
Like next batter up, next one up, right? We have an acting DNI, but we can't be without. I mean, maybe we could. He's got actings all over the place in his administration now. We've got an acting CDC director, an acting FDA commissioner, an acting attorney general, and now an acting DNI. There's a pattern here. There's a pattern here. So, but all I could think about was like, well, first, this is what General Flynn's office in D.C. looks like. Now, you know, the first question is, why does General Flynn have an office in D.C. with, you know, General Washington in the Durham boat crossing the Delaware?
Yeah.
And then, you know, think about this. Cash as the FBI director.
Yeah.
Ratcliffe as the CIA director. And Flynn as the DNI. I mean, talk about some flippant accountability.
I just can't even imagine.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, I think we're.
But currently, we don't have enough information. We can speculate. We can dream. But right now, the pattern is there is a tremendous amount of acting positions in the current administration. And, you know, it's interesting to me, family reasons is a kind of pretty benign, clean off-ramp, right?
Yeah.
I think this is a major chess move. Major.
Just generally, instead of it just being about bone cancer, it is a...
General cancer.
What do you mean by general cancer?
Meaning, is this the beginning of a narrative about cancer cures?
Boy, if he recovers as well as I hope he does, then Donald Trump called his shot.
Yeah. Trump said, I'm sure he'll be fine. He's going to be great. He's going to do great.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
All right. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we
So,
certainly will. And I don't know if there's a timeline for this stuff.
yeah.
Donald Trump definitely did what he could for poor Scott Adams. He passed, and I got to tell you, the cancer thing is a real nightmare because we don't really understand it.
Well, and at the same time, throughout the narrative, because I've been reporting on it on Doses of Deception, there's more and more and more coming out about cancer cures. Crazy things like dandelion root completely eradicating colon tumors. And, we already know about ivermectin, mebendazole, fenbendazole, and what it's doing with cancers. So I think that this is just an interesting timing, interesting narrative, interesting story. And just the fact that Flynn was posting that,
Yeah.
3:00 in the morning, the same day she steps down.
Wow.
It's all very curious to me.
Yeah.
All right. So, Patrick, just when you thought it was okay that you'd finally gotten all your hantavirus decorations up, it's Ebola season, friend. So,
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Ebola. I am ready to be entertained.
So the World Health Organization is reporting. There you go.
The WHO on Twitter. Now, a brief update on the hantavirus outbreak among passengers and crew on board the cruise ship MV Hontius. Today, the Netherlands confirmed an additional case among a crew member who disembarked in Tenerife, was repatriated to the Netherlands, and has been isolating since then. I don't know how to pronounce that city name, by the way. There are now 12 reported cases and 3 reported deaths. No deaths have been reported since the 2nd of May, when the outbreak was first reported to WHO. We continue to urge affected countries to monitor all passengers and crew carefully for the remainder of the quarantine period. More than 600 contacts continue to be followed in 30 countries, and a small number of high-risk contacts are still being located. Once again, I thank the many countries that have cooperated in the response and the epidemiological investigation: Argentina, Cabo Verde, Chile, the Netherlands, South Africa, Spain, the United Kingdom, and European Union. Dr. Tedros, noted retard and criminal.
So the crew member actually disembarked when they were in Spain back on May 10th. He got repatriated back to the Netherlands and has been reportedly isolating and has now tested positive. The MV Hondius has been docked in Rotterdam since May the 18th. And again, if you didn't get the memo, Patrick, it is time to put up your Ebola decor. So a new outbreak of Bundibugyo Ebola is ongoing in Central Africa. 5 days ago, the World Health Organization declared a global health emergency of international concern.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll let you go over these, Patrick, so we can all learn about Ebola disease.
A rare strain of Ebola has prompted the World Health Organization to declare a public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC, pronounced fake. The head of the organization expressed deep concern at the spread and scale of the outbreak as case numbers rise. The current Ebola outbreak is due to a rare strain of the virus known as Bundibugyo, named after Uganda's Bundibugyo province, where it was first identified during an outbreak in 2007-2008. Bundibugyo is one of the 4 species of Ebola virus genus that cause life-threatening illness in humans. Bundibugyo kills 30 to 40% of infected people, making it less lethal than the more common Zaire strain, which causes death in up to 90%, according to a global study published in 2024. Origins. All right. On average, people who have been infected with Ebola begin to show symptoms 8 to 10 days after exposure. People infected by the disease typically experience dry symptoms early, like headache and fever. After 4 to 5 days, patients may show wet symptoms as they become sicker, like bleeding and vomiting.
Yeah. So both the United States and Argentina have exited the World Health Organization, and that's representing over $1 billion in lost revenue. So they're kind of desperate for some relevance, right? They're stacking pandemics on top of each other. We're not even done with hantavirus, and now Ebola is coming out. From Dr. Peter McCullough's Substack, are you wondering why Ebola outbreaks are mainly an African storyline? Ebola virus disease remains a virulent pathogen, Patrick, characterized by hemorrhagic fever and high mortality without supportive medical care. Transmission allegedly occurs through direct contact with blood, secretions, or other bodily fluids of infected persons in the near death or deceased states. Well, Patrick, I've been around several deceased bodies, and you know what? Ebola wouldn't be the only thing that you might be exposed to. Anyway, in African cultures,
dead bodies are gross, and you don't want to be around them if you don't.
And you
have
certainly don't want to be like doing things like this, right? African cultures, the traditional burial and mourning rites involve the ritual washing, touching, and kissing of the deceased. And the viral load in a body post-mortem is at its peak. So these rites facilitate explosive super-spreading events. During the West African epidemic of 2014 through 2016, a single funeral was traced to the infection of dozens of mourners. When they returned to their villages, that's when it turned into a regional epidemic.
I'll tell you what's really going on there. They poisoned a village, and they're blaming it on a virus.
Yeah. So during that hantavirus outbreak, we learned that Moderna was actually collaborating on a hantavirus vaccine. But human clinical trials were put on hold due to lack of funding. Then we saw this stock jump of Moderna after that hantavirus outbreak. I know this isn't going to shock you, but coincidentally, Moderna is also developing a Bundibugyo Ebola vaccine. So let's take a look at this.
You can't even make this up. So CEPI, co-founded by the Gates Foundation, by the way, gave Moderna and the University of Oxford 4 months ago $26 million to develop mRNA and viral vector injections against the Bundibugyo strain, the same strain now in the Congo outbreak, the new outbreak. So 4 months ago, they began developing these genetic-based injections for that very strain.
I know. You're shocked, aren't you?
You know, I am just so embarrassed to be continually shocked by these jackasses. It's good enough at this point where we can say this is a white hat op. I really feel on how stupid all this is.
It's completely ridiculous at this point. It's so over the top.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yes. Oh, it gets better. It gets better.
No way.
Oh, yeah. So apparently, Patrick, earlier this year, Vincent Munster, that's correct. His last name is Munster. He's an NIH, NIAID virologist who specializes in viruses just like Ebola. Well, he was caught with undeclared pathogens returning from the Congo. Let's watch that video.
There may be a possibility he could have had Ebola samples with him. What's going on with this story, Nicholas?
Yeah, this is another shocking story. So an NIH virologist, an Ebola expert, he literally goes in the Congo often. He has field sites in the Congo to catch Ebola from wild animals. And so he was caught at a U.S. airport earlier this year with undeclared biological samples, what are called select agents that appear to be, we know for sure, monkeypox, but as well, there could be other pathogens. There could be Ebola because we know he works with Ebola. He was caught at the airport. Now he's under administrative leave. The FBI is reportedly investigating him. And this man, Vincent Munster, was linked or actually was actively involved in gain-of-function activities with SARS-CoV-2, with Fauci and colleagues. And so you can't even make this up.
At this point, I think this Nick Holscher guy, who's the epidemiologist with Dr. McCullough, I think he's part of this op to get information out, because I pay very close attention to what he's posting, and it's dead on with the narrative layout, right? Interesting. There's that connection to COVID additionally. So now we have hantavirus layering on to Ebola, layering now onto COVID with this mysterious Vincent Munster character.
According to web.archive.org, the Vincent Munster PhD website on NIAID went live January 5th, 2017. And has been saved and spidered 130 times since then. It's been active. I don't say about that.
So HHS spokesperson Andrew Nixon responded to inquiries about this story with no comments, under investigation, refer to the FBI. The FBI apparently has declined to comment on an ongoing investigation. So we don't know anything further about this character, what happened to him, or what happened to those samples. I went digging all morning and couldn't find anything. Very interesting. All right, moving on.
Oops. Sorry. The website.
Oh, did it jump? Did it jump up?
It sprung to life and tried to teach me about Ebola virus. Anyway.
So these are travel restrictions, Patrick, if you want to just cover these.
The Ebola travel restrictions fact sheet, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, updated May 22nd, 2026. Affected countries: Democratic Republic of the Congo, main outbreak area, Uganda, South Sudan. Current U.S. entry restrictions effective May 18th, 2026, 30 days. Foreign nationals, non-U.S. passport holders who have been in Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, or South Sudan in the past 21 days are not allowed to enter the United States. U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents allowed to enter must follow special rules. Required routing: all travelers coming from affected countries must fly into Washington Dulles International Airport, IAD, for enhanced screening. Not too enhanced, though, because we don't want to catch the Ebola from them.
Yeah. So yesterday, so all American citizens must come into those areas, those restricted areas, must come back into the United States only through Washington Dulles Airport. Except yesterday, Air France Flight 378 from Paris, bound for Detroit, got diverted to Montreal, Canada, after a passenger from the Congo boarded the flight. Let's take a look at that video.
And Ebola travel restrictions forcing the United States to divert a flight headed for Detroit. Homeland Security sending the plane to Montreal instead. The passenger from the Congo boarded the flight in what officials say was an accident. The U.S. currently has travel restrictions on 3 African nations where Ebola is spreading. They will be in effect for the next 30 days.
Okay, with that now, the growing concerns stem from an American doctor working in Central Africa testing positive for the disease. He's being treated now at a hospital in Europe, Germany to be more exact, and health officials with a worrying update a bit earlier today said this.
This outbreak is not small. I have described this outbreak as being like an iceberg. We've seen the top of the iceberg. I think the WHO is now into the many hundreds of cases and hundreds of deaths. But the truth of the matter is that real numbers will be much bigger than that. This requires all hands on deck, and that is what we're seeing here, and it is materially different to 2014.
Ooh, ooh.
They're freaking LARPing. It's pathetic.
Oh, yeah. So we know that just like COVID, flu, and hantavirus, Ebola is identified as a single-strand RNA virus. And we already know that hydroxychloroquine and zinc ionophores work. So we're going to just play that one real quick. I know this is painful for you, Patrick.
Hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. We know that both of these compounds exert potent antiviral activity across most RNA viruses. In fact, every single one they test. It's actually recommended to combine this hydroxychloroquine with specifically zinc, because hydroxychloroquine acts as what's called a zinc ionophore. It allows the zinc to enter the cell and inhibit what's called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase on the virus, so it can't replicate anymore. And so this appears to apply to a broad range of viruses. And the WHO is wrong when they already claim nothing works.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So to end this, Patrick, this segment on Ebola virus, I just wanted to show you this because on top of everything else, the death counter pics are back. They're
Good.
tracking
I
this.
missed the death counters.
They're tracking this daily now. I mean, is this like deja vu all over again?
Except it's way stupider. I was calling it
but it's
bullshit
going to have to
immediately.
be stupider. Is it going to have to be stupider for the people who didn't wake up during COVID to be shook awake? It's going to have to be stupider because it's stupider.
I really do believe
there's
that
death counts. There's death counts.
One of the great things about, as far as PSYOPs are concerned, Africa is perfect because none of us are anywhere close to being in Africa or going to Africa. Nobody goes to Africa. You know what I mean? So it's really easy to keep it as this dark place where they can tell us whatever the hell they want to about it. And we're not going to check. And even if we want to check, it's going to be incredibly difficult to check.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I do believe very strongly that there have been many cases of industrial poisoning of Africa, and you make up a virus because, man, that's a liability shield right there.
Oh, yeah. Easy to do. All right. We're going to take a little intermission ad break. Patrick, you want to tell us what you got going on this weekend? I'm going to put this up, and then I'm going to throw this up.
Guys, go to tulipblooms.shop, just like BB is showing you, our flagship products, the castor blend. That's the thing that I started putting on my face when my wife made it. She invented this thing. It's just castor oil, argan, apricot kernel, amaranth oil, and sea buckthorn fruit oil and essential oils. And I started putting it on my face because I liked the way it felt. And then my wife accused me of taking Botox, and I realized we had something magical on our hands. And then Rainfall, the aloe-based miracle with the same beautiful plant oils in it. Both of these are buy one, get one half off through Memorial Day weekend. Buy one, get one half off for these amazing products. Get them now. Stock up. Use promo code DOSES, and you get another 10% off on top of that. We don't do sales like this very often. Guys, these are the things you want for Memorial Day weekend. They're great for your skin. They're great for your health in general. Go to tulipblooms.shop. Take advantage of the flagship product, buy one, get one half off sale, and use promo code DOSES to support the channel and get 10% more off.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll be stocking up on some more Rainfall. What's great about the castor oil is a little goes a long way.
Damn right.
But man, I'm like going through Rainfall like crazy. I love it. Particularly in the summer. It's so good for your skin.
Yeah,
so
especially
good.
after sun damage. You know, if you take in too much sun, Rainfall just reverses it. It's a miracle.
All right, on to our next segment. All righty. Yesterday, the DOJ announced indictments against 15 people in Minnesota for Medicaid fraud schemes, totaling over $90 million in taxpayer theft. High-profile attendees at the press conference in Minneapolis included HHS Secretary RFK Jr., CMS Administrator Dr. Oz, and DOJ and FBI officials. From Kash Patel, FBI Director. Patrick, you want to take that?
FBI Director Kash Patel on Twitter. Today, 15 individuals have been indicted for over $90 million in an alleged massive healthcare fraud scheme in Minnesota after a sweeping FBI investigation with the Justice Department and our interagency partners. These charges involve the two largest Medicaid fraud cases ever charged in this district, and first of their kind, charges involving 7 additional Medicaid programs. As alleged, the defendants defrauded Minnesota public healthcare resources for tens of millions, targeting programs such as housing stabilization services, childcare, Medicaid programs, individualized home supports, and more. In one case, defendants even developed a scheme worth over $40 million to target the Early Intensive Developmental and Behavioral Intervention, EIDBI, an autism healthcare program, paying kickbacks to parents who fraudulently used autism centers to diagnose children with autism, regardless of medical necessity, and billing for services not actually provided. This not only defrauded taxpayers, but robbed valuable resources from families truly in need. President Trump gave this law enforcement team a mandate to investigate and systematically dismantle this exact kind of public fraud in America, which grossly abuses and mismanages money from hardworking American taxpayers. And that's exactly what we're doing. Today's indictment is a massive moment in this effort. More to come.
And then the White House posted, the White House account on X posted this, stating American taxpayers deserve to know where their hard-earned money is going. This is what accountability looks like. And Patrick, the details of this are absolutely infuriating. I will play.
Are they Somalis doing it?
I'll play this video.
For example, one defendant is charged with defrauding the Integrated Community Supports Medicaid program. This program is designed to help individuals with disabilities live independently. One patient was supposed to be receiving 24-hour care through this program, but he was actually being serviced by a fraudster and received no services. This patient was later found dead. Meanwhile, the architect of this fraud scheme was billing Medicaid as if he was providing care to this patient. The defendant even submitted a claim of over $400 for services he never provided the day before this man died. In another example, two defendants have been charged for defrauding a program designed to offer medical services to those with autism spectrum disorder. As alleged, the defendants paid kickbacks to parents who brought their children to autism centers, diagnosed children with autism regardless of medical necessity, and billed for autism services that were never actually provided. In one final example, two defendants have been charged in an over $22 million fraud scheme involving the Individualized Home Supports Program. This program was meant to support disabled individuals who wanted to live in their own homes. Instead, these disabled individuals were used like lottery tickets by these defendants to generate millions of dollars, which these defendants used to expand their real estate holdings, purchase luxury vehicles, and splurge on expensive jewelry. We will not, full stop, tolerate this greed and deceit. We will not let fraudsters bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid the same way that they bankrupted the Housing Stabilization Services Program. As mentioned, this is just the beginning.
How old is he? 27?
He looks young, I know. But like the whole thing about it, it's not just stealing the taxpayer money, right? It's that people were harmed. I mean, this is criminal harm on top of stealing. So RFK actually reported that the Early Intervention Development Program in Minnesota was costing $38 million in 2020. This year, the cost has skyrocketed to $442 million. From 38 to 442. Let's hear from RFK.
What the?
I know.
I want to start. I thought I was going to have a slide here. I want to call your attention to this, which is in your. Okay, here it is. Which is in your packet. This was the cost of the Early Intervention and Development Program in 2020. It was $38.1 million. This is what we expected to be paying every year. Instead, this year they hit $442 million. And that is, I'm showing you that because that's the magnitude of the fraud and the damage that we're talking about today. And I want to thank Todd Blanche, who couldn't be here today, Colin McDonald, and everyone at the Department of Justice for leading this effort. I want to thank also the FBI, who you're going to hear from in a little while, the HHS Office of Inspector General, CMS, and especially Dr. Oz, the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force, and Vice President Vance, and the investigators and law enforcement personnel whose relentless work made today's action possible. Today's arrests represent the largest autism fraud bust in American history. This was not a paperwork error. It was not a technical violation. This was organized theft that exploited the most vulnerable children in America, deceived families, stole taxpayer dollars meant to help children with autism access legitimate care and support. Investigators uncovered brazen schemes that billed taxpayers for non-existent services, fraudulent diagnoses, and fake care, while criminals enrich themselves at public expense. Every fraudulent autism diagnosis steals time, care, and resources from the children for whom this program was denied and who desperately need this care. Families with autistic children already face enormous challenges navigating therapies, specialists, and support systems. Fraud makes those barriers even steeper.
So, Patrick, if the fraud includes billing for care that was not given, for fraudulent autism diagnoses,
Okay.
currently in the country, they tell us that the autism rates are currently 1 in 31 nationally and 1 in 13 in California.
Oh.
Are you following what I'm saying?
How did I not think of this? BB,
Uh-huh.
this means
Uh-huh.
that it might not so much be the vaccines, but it could just be the organized crime of faking autism for Medicaid dollars. And if Minnesota gets 440 million, only God knows how much California is getting.
Because now I just for clarity purposes, we're not saying that autism doesn't exist because we know that it does. It's what we're speculating is that the rates that we have been given possibly could be calculating in there's fraudulent diagnoses being given to children in order to fraudulently bill for autism services. This is one state, and RFK just said this was the biggest autism fraud indictment in U.S. history. And again, autism rates currently in the nation are 1 in 31. In California, that you just mentioned, 1 in 13.
Okay, I want to know where the biggest rates are, and I bet you that they track with being very Democrat states.
I would probably agree with that. So I think we may actually see some adjustments as this accountability progresses. And if you think about it, I'll let you read this and then we'll talk about it.
Dr. Oz, CMS, on our way to Minnesota, where the fraudsters are about to leer a hard lesson on stealing from the American taxpayer.
This is before the Minneapolis hearing. He posted this on X. And then after the hearing, Nick Shirley posted.
Nick Shirley on Twitter, CBS News said there was no evidence of fraud. The New York Times said the Somali community was being targeted. CNN said there was little evidence. Tim Walz said it was white supremacy to expose fraud. Today, $90 million busted and 15 charged. It was all fraud, and they knew.
And think about it, because Nick Shirley, he started the whole exposure phase of this in Minnesota. Then he went to California and started exposing in California. Now we're back to Minnesota and the accountability phase has begun. So, my question is California next?
Oh God, that's so amazing if true. I mean, if that happens, if you actually get to just dive bomb California out of their just breathtaking, holding us all hostage to their criminality,
And
that would put me
Patrick,
in a good mood.
if what RFK said was this was the largest autism fraud scheme, right? In,
Mhm.
in Minnesota. What are we about to see in California? And again, I want to just see the idea in everyone's heads. Is this driving these autism rates that we've been seeing, these horrific numbers?
Mhm.
How much of that is going to be exposed as fraud?
Yeah,
I
because
don't know,
you can have
but
more autism. 'Cause I just 1 in 13 is freaking retarded. If you
yeah,
really think about it, it's not real.
it can't be real.
Yeah.
It can't be real. So, anyway, along this same story, we got told that 32-year-old Muhammad, I'm going to try this word, bear with me.
Okay.
Patrick will say this better, but Muhammad Abdul Qadir Omar jumped off of a 4-story balcony to evade capture. We're going to watch that video because it's stupid too.
Oh, awesome.
Before I begin my crux of my remarks, I need your help. On the screen, you will see a subject. You will see a subject depicted on the screen here of an individual who was a target of the investigation this morning. That individual is currently on the run after having jumped out of a fourth-story balcony. I want you to get a good look at him right now. You'll see him. You'll see him running here. He is currently on the run. We need your help. If you recognize this individual, if you know this individual, if you can provide any information related to this individual, I would encourage you to call 1-800.
Patrick, he said he's currently on the run. Did that look like he was running? Because he didn't look like he. Come on, he's currently on. He's currently on the run. After jumping out of a 4-story balcony.
That looks fake.
Yeah, he's currently on the run. Well, then we got an update from Cash.
FBI Director Kash Patel on Twitter, after today's interagency press conference announcing 15 public healthcare fraud indictments in Minnesota, the below subject fled when FBI executed today's raid. Muhammad Omar has now been arrested. He is charged with healthcare fraud, Chapter 18, United States Code, Section 1349, and Chapter 18, United States Code, Section 1347, involving a housing stabilization services company with fraudulent claims for services not provided and diverting the proceeds for personal benefit. Subject was located, arrested within 2 hours. He doesn't exactly look like a mastermind criminal. He looks like a homeless man.
And he doesn't look like he's running anywhere.
Wow.
So additionally, yesterday, Amy Bach, who was the mastermind of Feeding Our Future, was sentenced to nearly 42 years in prison for her role in the largest pandemic-era fraud scheme in U.S. history. And that involved the theft of roughly $250 million in the federal child nutrition funds that were meant for meals for children during COVID school closures. So Feeding Our Future was actually a small Minnesota nonprofit that was founded by Bach, I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong, Bach, back in 2016, and it was focused on hunger relief. Well, during COVID, Feeding Our Future sponsored allegedly over 250 meal sites, claiming to have served over 91 million meals. But only 3% of the funds, according to court documents, went to actual food.
42 years, though. That blows me away.
The what?
How long the sentence is.
42 years. It was the largest, I'm going to say it again, the largest pandemic era fraud scheme in U.S. history. So only 3% of the money that they got from those COVID funds went to actual food. The rest was laundered. And in that case, a total of 79 individuals were indicted. But she was the mastermind, so she got the heftiest sentence, We've got a video of that.
Breaking news, a Minnesota judge has just sentenced the mastermind behind the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, Amy Bach. She just got more than 41 years in prison. The prosecution is asking for a 50-year sentence and her defense about 3 years. So that's somewhere in the middle that they got that, but closer to what obviously the prosecution wanted. The scheme involved the theft of nearly $250 million in COVID funding. That money was meant to feed hungry children. State leaders claim they were unaware of the fraud. Here's what Amy Bach told our Alexis McAdams from jail back in January.
I honestly believe Keith Ellison and Governor Walz need to be held accountable. There needs to be an investigation done. If they weren't aware, that's concerning.
So this morning, Minnesota Rep. Tom Emmer blamed weak oversight in Minnesota that allowed the scheme. Now, what I want you guys to pay attention to is the names. What was the name of the guy on the run? Wasn't it Muhammad Omar?
Yeah.
Omar, last name? Watch this.
Last 8 years in Minnesota, and his has run rampant. Ilhan Omar is at the center of the Feeding Our Future scandal. She not only was the sponsor of the bill that created the fund that they ripped off, these are her neighbors. These are the people she represents. And by the way, the people that she was in communication with. You know that Amy Bach, the head of the Feeding Our Future scandal, was sentenced to 41 years yesterday. She has said that Ilhan Omar was aware. Right. And then you look at Keith Ellison. This guy was literally working with Somali fraudsters to frustrate investigations in return for campaign donation. It's been shown, Charlie. And Tim Walz, you can't tell us that he did not know what was going on right under his nose for 7.5 years. I'll tell you what my constituents are asking every day, Charlie. When are these people going to be held accountable? When is somebody going to go to jail for ripping everybody off?
And I know that you'll stay on top of it. Fox.
So the key legislation that he was referring to was the MEALS Act. And by the way, I hate acronyms, but MEALS stands for Maintaining Essential Access to Lunch for Students. So this act was introduced by Ilhan Omar, there's that name, in 2020. Once again, here's COVID being introduced and injected into all of this, Patrick. Do you see the weaving? So this was introduced in 2020. It was incorporated into the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, signed into law in March of 2020 by President Trump as part of the pandemic relief. So we have Omar on the run in Minnesota with Ilhan Omar aware of all of this fraud, and she being the one who actually introduced the legislation to give the funds, make the funds available that they were scheming and stealing. You can't, and all of this in the midst of COVID, while we have pandemic stacking.
Yeah.
I think it's Dave that likes to call these narrative clusters our new snack. This whole show is one big narrative cluster tonight. Dave, I hope you're watching. It's a big narrative cluster. All right. So to close out this segment, we'll just watch this video of JD Vance and his fraud task force.
Just like all of you, I was shocked last December when I watched Nick Shirley's bombshell investigation of migrant fraud in Minnesota, which called attention to the now infamous Quality Learning Center instead of learning and other schemes across that state. This morning, the ringleader of the $250 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme in Minnesota was sentenced in federal court to over 40 years in prison, bringing justice to the countless school children and families she had scammed. And on top of that, today, federal law enforcement launched a massive raid in Minneapolis. Across the city, agents have arrested 15 people for suspected fraud that amounted to $90 million. This includes two of the largest Medicaid fraud cases in Minnesota history, as well as the largest autism fraud scheme ever charged by the U.S. federal government. With this action, we're bringing justice to some of America's most vulnerable citizens and justice to the American taxpayer. In 2018, Minnesota tried to provide housing services for the homeless. They estimated that the cost of the program would be $2.5 million a year. By 2024, the program had exploded to $104 million annually, and almost all of it was because of fraud. As a result, the state had to shut down the program and can no longer provide those services to Americans in need. So we've got homeless veterans sleeping on the streets because fraudsters got rich. But it's not just the homeless who are the victims of these fraudsters. The victims in the cases announced by DOJ today also include disabled Americans who rely on community support to live full, independent lives, and citizens for whom defrauding such programs is literally a matter of life and death. In one of the most horrifying cases charged today, a recipient who needed 24-hour care was supposed to be receiving exactly that through a Minnesota Medicaid benefit program. But he received nothing. No care, no services, nothing for months on end. And then he went quiet. For 2 days, a neighbor tried to check on him, knocking on his apartment door. Nothing. Shortly after, he was found dead. One day before this man died, the fraudster in question had tried to bill for the non-existent services, the services that if they had been provided, this man might actually be with us today. To get rich off taxpayers, even at the cost of others' lives, just as that fraudster had for many months before. This kind of behavior is sickening. It's disgusting. It's an affront to all of us as Americans. And today we're saying clearly, no more. Our message is simple. If you're committing fraud, our task force will find you. We'll come after you, and we will not rest until justice is served. Don't defraud the American taxpayer. Don't get rich by trying to steal from them, or we are going to come after you until justice is served. That's our promise, and we're going to stick to it.
Kind of gross, right?
Yeah.
Final thought on the fraud exposure: hospice fraud, childcare fraud, housing fraud,
I'm excited for it to go national. And
autism fraud.
I think you have a real nice beat on that, because there's it just kind of made a light bulb go off for me. Oh my gosh, there's more autism, but it ain't 1 in 13. But it sure is a great way to steal money.
Yeah. But all of this fraud across, all of these programs, all this Medicaid fraud, but we're supposed to sit here and believe there's no election fraud, right? No voter fraud. And I think that the election fraud, the voter fraud is the key to all of the fraud.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is the beginning. We're all getting used to all of this fraud. It's going to make it much more palatable for the seagrass to accept voter fraud, right?
Precisely.
All right. Well, let's get into your report, shall we, Patrick?
The Tox report.
It is time for the Tox report.
All right. So I want to talk about musk ketones. When I've been told, probably during this awakening, the past decade, in the truth community and in the medical freedom community, they talk about things being poisonous that are in what goes in the air and our food and all over the place. And while there are plenty of things out there that are bad for you, we have been dive bombed with a whole bunch of alarmism, in my opinion. So I've started investigating the boogeymen of fragrance in particular, because I make natural fragrances. So a lot of what I'm doing in the lab right now is I'm using synthetics to do research so that I can reimagine them as in natural form. So I can take, and also you can't do research with some of these naturals because they're too expensive. So you stick in the synthetics during research phase and then you replace them with the naturals. but I've been looking, as I look at some of these synthetics, I worry, okay, I'm working with these things. Are they poisonous? So musk ketones, for example, have been listed as something that cause estrogenic activity in tissue. And so I said, well, is that true? Let's go track down as much as I can track down about this concept, because musk ketones are a synthetic copy of musks from animals that are really good in colognes and perfumes. And they've been heavily, the natural version has been regulated out of existence because it involves absolutely just decimating the populations of these very specific these musk deer. And it's just a whole thing. Anyway, there's a study that claims to show that musk ketone and related nitromusks can behave like estrogen chemicals in labs. The core claims, they claim that when musk ketone was added to estrogen-sensitive human breast cancer cells, they love using breast cancer cells or cancer cells in general in their tests, in their cell assays, because those cells are supposedly immortal. But anyway, the cells multiplied more than untreated cells. The researchers interpret that extra cell growth as evidence of estrogenic activity. So what they're insinuating is that if musk ketone can be associated with estrogen-like behavior in a dish, in a petri dish, then it might be an endocrine disruptor in living organisms.
But are they taking into account that a cancer cell's metabolism and the way that it uses energy is completely different than a natural cell?
They're taking into account nothing. And that's the amazing part of this study. They didn't come anywhere close to thinking about the fact that it's a cancer cell. They're even worse than that. Wait till you find out what they do in some of these studies. If you want to be appalled, just read a scientific study. Anyway, the regulatory summary says that musk xylene, musk ketone, quote, may have a weak endocrine disruptor activity in vitro. So they can't even prove it in vitro. They say may, and in vitro just means in glass. It means in a test tube. The study does not show any human endocrine disruption whatsoever. The argument basically boils down to the cancer cells grow when they're exposed to estrogen-like signals. Musk ketone was present and made those cells grow more. And then tamoxifen reduced that effect. Why did they add tamoxifen? That was weird. Therefore, musk ketone's effect appears connected to the estrogen signaling system.
Okay. Those are big leaps. Big leaps. Yeah.
So here's what they actually did. They didn't test people using perfume. That never happened. They tested musk ketone and similar chemicals in a lab, systems like in a test tube. They looked for binding to what researchers call estrogen receptors. And another test used human breast cancer cells that multiply when exposed to estrogen-like signals, and then they multiplied when exposed to musk ketone. That's it. That's it. That's all that happened. So it'd be like saying, okay, so there's these cancer cells that when you expose them to estrogen, they grow, and we expose them to this other thing,
and they didn't grow,
and they did grow, and they grew, and so they have like an estrogen-like effect. And so they're kind of like estrogen, and so they're endocrine disruptors. It's that stupid. So in plain English, they grew cancer breast cells in dishes. The cells are known to grow faster under estrogen-like stimulation. They added musk ketone, and they measured, did these things multiply more? And they observed increased proliferation for musk xylene, musk ketone, and 4-amino musk xylene. Then they added tamoxifen, a chemical used to block estrogen signaling. It blocks a lot of other stuff too. And when tamoxifen reduced the extra cell growth, the researchers said, well, it's acting like as if we added estrogen. So you add musk ketones, you get more multiplication. You add tamoxifen and you get less, and bam, it's endocrine disruption. Literally no other argument than that. They leave out, they tell you, they give you no idea what doses they used of any of these things, whether those doses resemble anything close to real perfume exposure. I guarantee you they used 1 billion times perfume exposure quantities, how long the cells were exposed, the size of the growth increased, what solvents they used, full dose response curves, whether the effect was weak, marginal, or only at high artificial concentrations. Long story short, they gave the summary I was able to get my hands on, gave the conclusion, never enough detail in any way to figure out what they actually did. And if I wanted to read the actual study, I had to spend $40 and I wasn't going to spend that money. So that's what it boils down to. It does not prove in any way that these things harm people. It doesn't prove that perfume use disrupts hormones. It doesn't prove that normal cosmetic exposure causes any kind of disease. At most, it shows that under lab petri dish conditions, musk ketones produce a weak estrogen-like signal in a sensitive cancer cell assay. So, and even the people who did the study say this doesn't prove jack squat. So I just, whenever you hear things like that, you've got to drill down into it because they're not really showing a single damn thing. My suspicion is that there was a newer musk that wanted to replace the older musk. And so they built this study to get people to stop using the old musks. And now they've completely figured out that the musks don't do shit and they don't hurt they don't give you estrogen or anything like that. But the damage is done. Everybody will now, from now on, say musk ketones have regulatory baggage, even though they're perfectly legal to use. It's not to say that you can't be completely sensitive to the things that are in perfumes, and they can make you sneeze, they can make you sick, they can give you allergic reactions. What's not happening is you're not being poisoned to death by perfumes. It's just making you sneeze. And for some of you who are sensitive to that stuff, stay away from it. Stick to natural stuff. But the panic stuff, it's way overblown. I'm going to get to more of that stuff in the future.
Fantastic. What a great report. Yeah, because I've heard those same things. I haven't dug into that research just like you just did, but I have avoided using perfume for those reasons, right?
Yep.
So I'm glad. Yeah, I'm going to be throwing on my 1980s obsession, Patrick.
If you have that stuff from the 1980s, use it, but you're not going to be able to get it anymore because they have nerfed the shit out of obsession. And now it's a shadow of its former self.
All right. Well, we are coming up to the close here. Just want to do a special thanks to our Doses team in the chat, our chat moderators, Magadai and Chris Schaus. Thank you so much, ladies, for all you do in the chat. Any last thoughts this evening, Patrick? Any upcoming shows?
I've got the D-Class show tomorrow night. That is at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, that's
it
right.
is.
7 p.m. Eastern.
And that is on News Treason, and you also simulcast.
And P. Gunnels. And we're going to talk about the things we always talk about, Q drops and how they relate to the comms. And of course, we're doing the amazing Tulip Blooms flagship products, buy one, get one half off. Castor Blend and Rainfall, tulipblooms.shop, promo code DOSES for an extra 10% off on top of the BOGO 50. So check that out at tulipblooms.shop. And that's about it.
Awesome. Well, Tuesday, the 26th, I will be for Doses of Deception. 8 p.m. we will have Patriot Underground joining me, and we're going to dive into what the hell is going on with all the ticks. So we're diving into tick-borne illness and all of the narrative insanity, hair pulling, hair on fire about the ticks. So join us Tuesday at 8 o'clock for that. All right, you guys have a blessed Memorial Day weekend. We will see you right back here next Friday, live at 5 for Deception Distilled. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Patrick.
Clarity in the chaos, cut it to the core, everything they bury, rising to the surface. Same design again, different words, same line. Blur it till it fades, hide it in plain sight. Clarity in the chaos, cut it all.